Radio Free Skaro!
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Radio Free Skaro, episode number 969. I am Stephen in Madison.
Warren in Vancouver.
And Chris in Edmonton.
Yep. Eric and I are visiting the family, Fangirl Prime, here in Wisconsin.
I think you mean the fam?
The fam. We are. Yeah, we'll talk about that in a little bit here. The fam. So if we literally flew in today. We're recording this.
Boy, your arm's tired.
Yeah, in the afternoon here.
Wow.
So if I'm just saying this now, just in case you hear exuberant Wisconsinites through the wall, it's because they're all catching up and stuff like that. While I sit here and record a nerdcast talking about nerd things.
Is exuberance permitted in the Midwest?
That's a good point. As long as you say sorry first, I think.
Yeah, that's not Madison nice at all.
No, it isn't. No, Madison's a nice city, but yeah, they're a nice place. Although we are here to cover the RNC happening in Milwaukee next week, of course.
Oh, goody.
Yeah, no, we're not. Yeah, like what a time to come. Like, what do you? Oh, let's go visit now. What's it? Oh, I see what's going on in Milwaukee. It's the RNC's going on there. So that should be fun. That should be fun. If we're staying away.
At least there's beer.
There's always beer. There's always beer. There's always cheese curds. It is. It's in hot weather. It's humid here.
Yeah.
This Western Canadians. Yeah, not used to the humidity. So that's going to be a new thing.
I'm not even used to the... I've lived here for 20 years. It's humid. I still can't get used to it. I'm so used to the dry environs of Edmonton.
Mm-hmm.
Madison is... it's on the shores of two lakes.
Well done.
Ooh.
Well done, yeah.
I'd like to look it up.
I know you had to look it up. One of those lakes is where Otis Redding's plane went into back in 1967. So there you go, man. Famous
Dane
for that.
County Regional Airport.
Yeah, that's right. That's where I landed today. Dane County Regional Airport. Anything else you want to know about Madison before we talk about a whole bunch of Doctor Who news, or is that are you sated? You're satisfied?
Have you ever been to
I was sated before you started talking about
University of Wisconsin Madison Arboretum?
No, I have not.
Okay. I'm good.
Okay, good. Excellent. So big news. Anyway, on the podcast, we thought it was going to be a slow news week, and then everything happened. But Richard Bignell's on this. Richard Bignell, one of the Doctor Who's prominent historians throughout history, is on this podcast today to talk about, specifically about season 15 and all the PDFs that he puts on this and all the releases and stuff, but just talking about just like all the work that goes into these things. It's amazing. We always like talking to people who work on the collection Blu-rays because they are our favorite things to do with Doctor Who, I think. I think so.
Absolutely.
If I had to pin it down, that might be my favorite thing.
As I can still remember back in the day, 10-ish maybe years ago, things like, Steve Roberts doing DVD panels of Gallifrey One, talking about how maybe the classic series could come out on Blu-ray. What would they do with all the what would they do with all the space? How can they make things look better? What kind of content could they have? All that kind of stuff, and it's like, this is what we get, and we are very happy.
So even though I don't regularly buy them, I totally respect the love that gets poured into them.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it? I remember when they announced that, Chris. In my head, I was thinking they're up-resing it to be on Blu-ray, and I thought it was a ludicrous thing. But it just meant Blu-rays are just bigger discs. You can fit more on there.
And other things like, maybe we can fit a whole season on a single disc.
Yeah.
And we got 8 disc releases.
I know, which is good, because we have basically the broadcast quality episodes as they are on a single disc, It's pretty cool.
Well, thanks to Blu-ray, you have 25 hours of studio footage.
Oh, so much studio footage. Season 25 is coming out in October in the UK. I hope it's coming out soonish to North America. But anyway, that chat is later on in the show. If you're a Patreon supporter, you already heard it because it was in your feeds earlier this week. Just like our Planet of the Spiders commentary is also getting doled out over this week and the next. So if you want to support the show, sign up, patreon.com/Radio Free Skaro. I don't know why I'm saying it like that, but that is where you can help support the show. And
Just let Simon do it in the closing.
It's true, he doesn't do it anymore. It's outdated. So I think 3 of the social media networks mentioned in that blurb are now no longer relevant. So we had to chop it. So
Yep.
Anyway, the other big news as we record this, July the 13th, 13, get it? This dropped at 13/13, that being 1/13 in the UK. Jodie Whittaker and Mandip Gill.
That's clever. Clever.
Isn't it, though? Return to Doctor Who in Big Finish next year, July of 2025. 12-hour-long full cast audio adventures with Yaz and the 13th Doctor. That is way cool. Hooray for that. Your thoughts, gentlemen?
It's great. It's awesome. I'm surprised that she got there before Capaldi did, but that's how this thing plays out. That's just me chronologizing in my head. It's got nothing to do with the way Big Finish does anything. But
maybe because she's more recent than Capaldi, it makes more sense.
I also think that Jodie, I was thinking this today, Jodie's Doctor in particular is really verbal and really like emotes a lot, and that will play really well in audio, I think.
Yeah. Also, Jacob Dudman's Jodie Whittaker impersonation is terrible. I've heard it. So,
yeah.
What about Tim Treloar?
I wonder if they actually thought about that.
Tim Treloar also not the best. So they thought, well,
David Bradley, could you play Jodie Whittaker, please?
Let's just call her up. See if she says
yes. One of the earlier remarks I saw after the news announcement was I forget who said it, so I can't give proper credit, but somebody remarking how they're looking forward to having Chibnall not write for the 13th Doctor, just to have different voices for her and see how that goes, because and that was in part anyway. That was in an effort to praise the writers that Big Finish tends to hire.
Yeah,
there are better ways to praise the writers of Big Finish.
Backhanded compliment. I think you could probably say I'm looking forward to see how the writers of Big Finish will expand the universe of the 13th Doctor to places where they were.
The Chibnall thing, I'm sure, was very intentional.
It totally was. Yeah,
but I've still never really done that much of the Big Finish. I can still count on one, maybe 2 hands how many I've listened to over the years. But it's good. I mean, Eccleston's return to Big Finish was massively well received.
Yes, it was.
And he did however many series, and he seemed to have a blast doing it. And obviously Whittaker wasn't as hesitant to come back to Doctor Who stuff as Eccleston was, but I mean, it certainly paid off for him. I'm sure it'll pay off for her.
I think so. I mean, I think
job satisfaction, right? I mean,
I've seen some people say how Colin Baker's Doctor just transformed. In audio, because he never really got the full innings that he could have on screen for various reasons. And I feel like
Paul McGann too.
Paul McGann especially. I feel like Jodie Whittaker didn't really have the amount of time on screen that because COVID sort of curtailed their last season and all that.
There's definitely no shortage of people mostly talking about Baker on like Facebook or whatever, saying how his Big Finish time has really shone a positive light on the 6th Doctor, and this can be nothing but good, right?
I think so. And with that group, with that pair as well, they are so great together. They clearly are friends.
Okay. On that note, then
here we go.
So Strevens and Chibnall and they didn't want to go there.
Non-stop kissing in
just endless smooching. There's just one called kissing.
Episode 3 is going to be nothing but suction sounds as they mac
I think
on each
smooching
other.
is a little more
let's keep it a little more PG
family
here.
friendly. Let's put it that way.
Very much.
Less crude.
They
I don't
are.
know. But I thought about that myself. But I'm also like, but in order to hew to canon, which Big Finish likes to do, they got to dance around it a bit, because maybe, I don't know. You could have Unbound and don't even think about what you're thinking, Chris.
Oh, I'm thinking more Bound.
You are nothing if not a simple man.
It's funnier when
Simple
you
man
think
with
of
simple
it.
needs.
It's funnier when you think of it, but don't say anything because
Yeah. You could have left it to the imagination, like the best horror films
not
do.
Chris. No, gotta hammer that home. Were you done with your quote there, Warren? Did we cut you off, or were you going to say something else? I don't know.
No, that was it.
Okay.
The thing from the press release saying how meeting, as the phrase says, meeting a brand new cast. I take it that means there's probably very little chance of, Ryan and Graham or Dan or...
Oh, no. I'm thinking this...
Carvanista coming back? Or anything.
No. Well, you never know with Carvanista. I think this basically happens... it all happens post Revolution of the Daleks. Is that the final one? Which is the final one for Ryan and Graham? I've already forgotten. It is that one,
before
right?
Flux. Before Flux.
Before Flux, obviously, yeah. So I feel like all that's going to happen basically in between this and Flux. Maybe there'll be some stuff happening, but there's not a lot happens post Flux. There's a couple specials in there, of course, but Dan's probably not going to be there. Let's face it. But you know what? Yeah. I mean, we've got like Joe Martin is her forthcoming series is coming up. She's later on this news list. We'll talk a little bit about hers too. Sasha Dewan is coming out with his master box. Like 2025 is like the biggest year in Chibnall since like 2018. Because like so much is happening on Big Finish that started in the Chris Chibnall era. So.
Wonder if they'll get Chibnall back to write for it.
I don't think he wants to write for Doctor Who ever again. I think he is done.
I saw something about, was it 15 years after his death? Gareth David Lloyd wants Yanto to return to Torchwood or some such.
Sure.
Some puff piece probably. But
actor wants work headline, basically.
Probably.
Yeah.
But if something like, because I don't know, at least Chibnall's never done any of the Big Finish Torchwoods, and that's still very much a going concern. So.
Yeah. I think it would be a difficult thing to write for audio compared to like TV. I just think I think
they're both difficult, frankly.
They are difficult, but like difficult in their own
different ways.
Yeah, like having to be so descriptive with your dialogue that you can get away with when you're on television because you're showing it, I don't envy this.
You're probably onto something. So like in like TV, film, whatever, you can show it. In the written word, you can describe it.
Yep.
In the audio world, you can't really do that so easily without
you can do it, but it takes some
taking you out of the things.
Yeah.
It's a very much a different skill for sure.
You can see why like some of these things happen. Big Finish doesn't do it often, but narrators or something like that, because then he could just sort of get away with just sort of saying, "Here's what's happening." If only we knew Big Finish writers. If we knew a single one of them to ask how it is.
That'll never happen.
Writing Big Finish plays. Maybe we should talk to some and find out, because I'm intrigued.
Yes.
Yeah,
that would just be an interesting general interest thing, regardless of this. I was also thinking, because I'm a giant nerd, that I'm like, what other doctors can she meet? Although she has met a bunch already in the Netherworld or whatever that was in Power of the Doctor.
Yeah.
Well, here's Sean Pertwee's chance to
swoop in and because eventually
Michael Troughton is the second Doctor.
Exactly. Eventually, children of the original actors are going to be just taken over. So
So Tom Baker's 91. The time is now.
Yeah. True. 90.
Yep.
Yeah.
What's his name? Julian Glover's son, who played Ian.
Jamie Glover, who plays Ian Chesterton in the Actually,
they're already doing that anyway. So
and Sadie Miller, get her in there too, with Sarah.
And
can you imagine a Sarah and the 13 team up? That'd be awesome.
That would be kind of cool. All the world, look at this. This is the great thing about Big Finish. Sometimes we make fun of Big Finish. They could use it like you're using like a random story generator. It's like, who's in this one? This looks like
tell us something we want,
Smith.
and then
Silurians. Looks like the Tractators are here as well. Says so on the wheel, and they're all right, get it right, and there's your story.
Well, that's what I love about that.
Anything,
That one where that came out, I think, or not came, but it was announced last week with Joe Martin's Doctor and the War Doctor
coming out
and.
In the
somebody
news,
else. Yeah.
It's later in the news list. Yep.
Can't remember who the third person is, but then they also have a Vord and Queen Elizabeth. I'm like, no, we need a Vord and Queen Elizabeth. Come on, we gotta
That's the
fill
wheel.
that thing out.
Yeah, that does feel like the story generators like just kicked in like full on.
Hey, I'm
like,
fine with it. The
Yeah.
Vord and the audios are just complete scumbags, so I'm cool with it.
Yeah.
I mean, are they? Okay. This is
Yeah.
not their first appearance. Not their first appearance.
Andrew Smith, friend of the show, Andrew Smith wrote one with the Board, and
course,
they are
yes.
they're not nice fellows. Let's put it that way.
Of course.
No, despite the Teletubby logos on their heads, but yeah.
But I mean, obviously, Big Finish takes things a lot more seriously than they could. But I mean, that's
Thank God for that.
one nice thing about audio where you don't have to show anything is
No.
you can get all kooky like that.
Mm-hmm.
If you want, your Konos and I don't know,
Go on.
Sea Devil,
Sure.
and Arbitan,
Yep.
all in the same place.
Together
Sure, why not?
last.
That was a noble effort, Chris.
I think a Big Finish story generator should be, and this is strictly for me, of course, is that you take like a letter of the alphabet. Go, okay, let's go through all the production codes that have this letter, and then that's where we draw the enemies and friends from, and that's where you go. That's how you make your stories in Big Finish. You can't do that for Jodie Whittaker's, obviously, bringing it right back around
No.
here, but
You're gonna have a tough time with something like Planet of the Spiders because there's not that many words that have 3 Z's in it.
no, but there is a Z.
Zazzle.
So you go
Zazzle.
for, let's see, what maybe Wyatt Earp meets up with the
Hey, I'm down.
the Warlord, and also Campo Rinpoche, except this time he's played by an Asian person, and then
Or
somehow
just
the
get Cyril
right,
Shapps'
yeah.
corpse reanimated.
right, and then somehow the Sontarans from the Invasion of Time show up, and then also for some reason it's set on Castral Valva 5Z, and then all of a sudden those two guys, one of them played by Colin Spall and Trevor Cooper from Revelation the Daleks show up, and it's like, okay, there you go, Zeds all in
And the
there.
great thing about it being audio is Castrovalva can be as Escher painting as you want it to
It
be.
could be, yeah.
And it's going to be an 8-part series,
Yeah.
and the title for the 8-part series is just Zeds.
Zeds. You just put in Zed. Or maybe it's that
Any
famous
surviving
Italian
actress with Zed cars we want to add into the mix?
man.
What
I
about
don't
the
know.
movie Zed, the political film from the 60s?
I was going to say the political film of for the 60s.
Was it 60s or 70s? Well, yeah.
It's 60s, I think. I know the one you mean. That's the one I was thinking of from Italy. Anyway, after all that preamble, July 2025, Jodie Whittaker, Big Finish, available for pre-order now, 12-hour-long episodes. I think they're out in a box set too, so that's pretty cool. Could have been pretty cool.
Is everything dropping at once then?
I think it's
wow.
I think it's either dropping at
Okay.
once or they're all coming out due to release from July 2025. So it'll probably be spaced out. But 12 episodes, 12-hour-long
cool.
episodes. That is longer than any of the televised.
Yeah, it's a chunk of her era, actually,
Yeah,
is what
that
it is.
that she had. So it's quite something. So
Because
well done.
10 by 50 versus 12 by an hour. Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
Big
Yeah.
difference.
I was
Yep.
watching a bit of The Power of the Doctor the other day just for the hell of it, and I really kind of miss the Jodie era. I mean, not to crap out I like this era too, but I kind of miss the Jodie era now. It's been long enough,
I know, like time has passed, and you just sort of like, I remember these days. It was kind of
Every era is like that. It's just to get a
Yep.
year or two's gap, and you're like, yeah, that wasn't as bad as
Hey,
everybody
we're
said it
2
was, which it
doctors
wasn't
beyond
anyway.
her already, so.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks to the wonderful 3 weeks of the.
Well, yeah, that's kind of as Capaldi
Yeah.
said. This is more of a rounding error or paperwork error, whatever it was. He said when he
Yeah.
regenerated.
Yeah, the Tennant era was basically the Liz Truss era of Doctor Who's.
He was a much better prime minister by doing nothing prime ministerial.
That's true.
Much like Liz Truss.
That's true.
And B doctor than Liz Truss.
The 14th Doctor didn't outlast a head of lettuce either, so it's
No,
dicey.
and I don't wish Richie Sunak's fate on Shooty either. So.
no exactly.
So let's stop making these comparisons. Actually, comparing any doctor except maybe Pertwee to the Tories is blasphemy.
It's true, the pause story. Anyway, other big news that happened this week. It was announced but 3 days after I canceled my hotel room for
Typical.
San Diego, just because I thought, yeah, you know what? I didn't do the big hotel bingo to get a hotel room. I just went to like Expedia. I just booked one somewhat off the beaten path, something that I could fully cancel without getting dinged or anything like that. Just in the off chance that I might want to go to San Diego, and I think I don't feel like going. Listen, like there's gonna be any Doctor Who stuff. So I canceled it. And then boom, Hall H, baby. Doctor Who returns to Hall H, San Diego Comic-Con. This has got to be the first time since the first Jodie panel, wasn't it 2018? I think it is.
Is that San Diego or New York?
I'm talking San Diego. Like that was San Diego, big launch, doing the Her Universe fashion show. That was 2018,
Right.
in advance
that
of
was San
season,
Diego.
Series 11. First time, and Ncuti Gatwa, Millie Gibson, Russell T. Davies, Friday at whatever time it is, 12:30 to 1:30, conveniently for us. On a Friday, so that we can talk about it.
Thank you, San Diego gods.
On the podcast, as opposed to the last thing on Sunday, which has been the case in years past. So that's what I'm missing out on. I'm missing out on the Hall H panel, and one other thing that we'll talk about. But do you want to talk about the Hall H panel first?
Well, they're not going to say anything.
I mean,
like they're gonna all Hall H panels are like this. They don't really give much away, or they show something that you're never going to see because you weren't there.
Chris, you had something, because I think we're probably on a similar page, but
yeah. Well, I was going to say, I mean, just to Warren's point, I mean, was it San Diego, New York, whatever? That trailer, that trailer that got shown, and during Moffat's tenure, and Moffat's like, "Don't tell anybody," and nobody did.
Mm-hmm. That was Comic-Con. That was the day of the
That
Doctor.
trailer has never shown up anywhere.
I can't remember if that's San Diego or New York, but
San Diego, yeah.
San Diego, yeah.
But so yeah, some stuff does happen, and people behave.
Yeah,
I'm glad to see this. Like, I'm assuming, like back in the day when it was a more frequent thing, that was BBC America money. So I'm assuming this is Disney money.
Oh, yep, it is.
But that's great. I'm trying to think of things to say so that the next thing we talk about in Comic-Con can be delayed, because somebody amongst us, and it's not me, is going to break down in tears.
Oh, I'm not going to break down in tears. No, the official blurb is, I can't remember who's moderating the panel, but it's Gatwa, Gibson, and Russell the Davies, and they're as they discuss all things season 1 and more. And I think they said there's a sneak preview or something. So I bet you there will be the first trailer for the Christmas special, Joy to the World. I bet you drops.
That wouldn't surprise me at all.
At the very end of the panel is probably what they'll do.
And then maybe goes on YouTube after that.
Yeah, I think it'll be timed. I don't think it'll be a Hall H exclusive or anything.
Day of the Doctor is something you don't do that for, but or whatever 60th thing they might have had available at the time, right? But the Christmas special, why not put it up? Maybe a couple days later or something.
Why not?
They will put it out, I'm sure.
Oh no, it'll drop the same time. They'll time it. I remember, what year was it? It was a year that they were going to drop a trailer for a season. It might have been during the Capaldi years. I can't remember now. And but the Comic-Con panel was delayed by like 5 minutes starting, because the previous one went long or something. But they were ready to drop the trailer that they were going to release or premiere at Hall H at a certain time. So that time had been determined, but because there was such a delay in Comic-Con, everywhere around the world saw it first on YouTube before the 6,000 people at Hall H finally saw it. So that was kind of funny.
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
There is a certain having been in Hall H and not even seen, I never saw actually good trailers. I saw the Day There Stood Still trailer. Yeah. Keanu Reeves was on stage, which was cool. But anyway, the point is, there is a certain something to being in that audience of 6,000 nerds who are very excited about whatever, right?
Yeah.
So, time to transfer your media pass to Heather Burbrit.
Yeah, that's true. I'm sure they just transfer it across straight, one for one.
No, totally.
Yeah, it's totally how it works. But I know I saw Heather being very. Heather, of course, has been on the podcast many times in the past, often reporting on the scene from San Diego Comic-Con, and we'll see what she's doing that weekend. Seems she can report back about that. And the other Doctor Who related thing that's happening. So I don't know if you know this, but July the 30th is the inaugural Intergalactic Friendship Day, which sounds like
I don't like the sounds of this.
Sounds like something that like Martin Prince from The Simpsons has sort of like come up with.
You gotta say it in his voice. I'm not asking you to. I'm just saying hear it in his voice.
Oh, I think the only ship worth a damn is the friendship. Here comes the friendship sailing away.
I think that's pretty much what this is. But what it is it's a Star Trek Doctor Who Day of Friendship. It sounds mamby-pamby when I talk about it. I'm sure it's lovely. I'm sure it's going to be great. I don't know if there's the big war between Star Trek and Doctor Who nowadays.
In our heads, I think there is.
In the 90s, there was in my head. My head was home to a civil war between Doctor Who being canceled and Star Trek: The Next Generation running off with all the fame. And it took me several decades to get over that.
20s. B being Gen X, C being a nerd, and D, that's just kind of how nerds thought back then. I don't know I doubt they do now. Like there's a whole new generation of nerds who are probably a little less idiotic than we are, or idiotic about different things.
Annoyingly, the Comic-Con panel for this is on Saturday, July 27th at 5:30 p.m. Pacific.
It is.
After we're likely to be recording. But it's Alex Kurtzman and RTD. And moderated by Keisha Hatchett, staff editor of TV Line.
There we are.
Your restraint right now, Stephen, is inspiring. I was concocting nonsense in my head about Alex Kurtzman contacting RTD via dead drop. Please tell me how to make proper television, sir.
How do I ruin a franchise? Russell T Davies wrote out to Alex Kurtzman. What I'm looking forward to is the surprise announcement of another season of Discovery.
Right.
But RTD and Kurtzman switch roles. So Kurtzman's going to do Series 3 of Doctor Who.
I don't like where you're going with that.
RTD is going to do Season 6 of Discovery.
All right. It's okay. Sure.
Yeah.
It's going to be like that episode of TNG where Riker goes on board the Klingon ship as part of that exchange program.
and gets his ass whooped.
Yeah, but he impresses all the Klingons by eating live gach.
That's true.
They win them over. I can't remember what happened in the Klingon portion of that. Did somebody
they didn't like him very much, or
he probably took a dagger out or something like that. Didn't get through airport security. Spent the whole episode in the brig or something like that.
The main thing is seeing Riker as a fish out of water. You kind of forget about everything else because a Klingon acted like a jerk on the Enterprise. Well, what a surprise!
I know. Kurtzman will just come in and they'll be in a musical episode suddenly for Doctor Who, and for some reason there will be no science.
Devil's Court Part 2.
Everyone is hugging. It's just what is happening to Doctor Who all of a sudden? Since Kurtzman involved. It's not that. But you know what? I tell you, because the official Subwave network, that being the Instagram thing that you can sign up for and get instant alerts for Doctor Who. And a few minutes before this panel dropped, they just put they had the 2 heart emojis and then a plus. And then I didn't actually know that the Vulcan hello symbol thing, the finger thing, was an emoji.
Live long and prosper,
It lived long and prosper.
Yeah, I don't remember when they introduced that. I can't remember what show or movie it was for, but it was a while back.
But it showed up, they teased that just with the emoji. And so for about 7.5 minutes, both fandoms are going, oh my God, no, not a crossover.
My take was, they haven't said they won't. Just to stoke the flames. I was thinking about this because I'm stupid and like to suffer. And I was thinking to myself, well, the logical place to do it, pardon me, if you're going to do it, is not on Doctor Who. It is on Strange New Worlds, where they've done it once already. And that is the officially sanctioned wacky area for wacky stuff that isn't Lower Decks, right?
That's true. That's where they do
So
it.
if you're going to do it anywhere, and also Paramount is probably in less good financial straits than Disney is.
Needs some money more than...
Now, will they do it? I doubt it. It seems like a lot of work. It's just Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny being a Roger Rabbit together. That kind of stuff happens once a generation, if that. So I doubt it. Getting the X-Men into the Marvel universe when they own them is proving increasingly difficult. So I doubt that very much. But who knows? I could be wrong. We'll find out in a few days, I suppose.
Well, also, if it's kind of they see these crossovers in the 80s and 90s, thinking, oh my God, this is, they're on the same Paramount lot. That's why Dr. Julian Bashir shows up on this episode of Next Generation. He's literally next door. Whereas in Doctor Who, someone's flying across an ocean to shoot something for something,
So you're saying we're getting Dr. Bashir back?
We are getting Dr. Bashir back. Yes, we are.
Just do a walk-on of the least, the most obscure Trek person you possibly can. In fact, put David Cronenberg on as that Daniel guy, because he's already a temporal agent.
That's true.
and again, I'll have to look up, I forgot who that guy is again. Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah.
Sorry for spoilers for the end of Discovery, people.
Yeah.
It was like, what, a month ago?
Yeah, I did it a couple months ago. It's fine now.
And that was a throwaway anyway. So.
Yeah. Anyway, as Chris mentioned, there is a panel happening in panel room 6A, Black Orchid, on the Saturday. So, and then there's also going to be a display, a gallery
no
experience. No buffet.
No buffet.
Patrick's eating it
Somebody
all out
has
anyway.
to cosplay as the Harlequin from Black
But there
Orchid
is
in
fancy
that
dress.
room.
There is fancy dress. There is also a Friendship is Universal, that's what they're calling it in all caps, gallery experience featuring Star Trek and Doctor Who costumes and props. That's in the Gas Lamp Car. You don't even need to go to Comic-Con for that. It's like actually in San Diego for that. So interesting.
Who didn't get invited to this? It's Star Wars, and I'm saying that's the neckbeard's fault.
Just
put it out there.
I mean, it's like Doctor Who and like Star Wars share the same streaming home.
They sure do.
So it is kind of funny that this hasn't.
I mean, that'd be very unwieldy, and maybe this didn't. Who cares? And God only knows what layer of complication that might be too.
Or maybe Kathleen Kennedy just says, "Yeah, no, we're not doing this."
I hate that Doctor Who. I've never liked Doctor Who. Kathleen Kennedy says in internet YouTube shocker.
Yeah,
online sources are reporting that.
So I think that's probably so. Let's face it, we love Doctor Who. I'm sure we love Star Trek, but compared to Star Wars fandom, it's probably not in the same league. And honestly, right now, that is perfect. I am A-okay.
Doctor Who and Star Trek have their problems with fans, but they don't have that problem with fans that Star Wars currently does.
No, they don't. So.
Well, name somebody Skywalker on Doctor Who, and then we'll talk.
There we are.
Well, I mean, somehow Rassilon returned, which they basically did ahead of Star Wars.
That's
to
true.
Be fair,
did it several times. Kidding me? Yeah. Anyway, so that's Comic-Con. That's what's happening, and so we'll probably do an episode about the stuff that happens at Comic-Con when the time comes out. That's a couple weeks from now. A couple weeks after that. We were wondering if there's going to be any Doctor Who content or something at D23, the periodic official Disney fan event, which happens in Anaheim, California, August 8th to 12th, I think, the exact same time that Worldcon is happening. So we're happy to report to you that there is absolutely nothing to do with Doctor Who happening at D23. So
are we actually kind of happy about that?
Well, I mean, I'm scrolling through here. So it's stuff that they own, basically. I don't think there's anything here that is like, licensed to Disney,
Is there any Star Wars stuff even? Because that is technically Lucasfilm.
Well, I'm here to tell you, Warren, as I scroll through. No, I don't see any Star Wars. I don't see any Star Wars either.
There you go.
Actually, so.
That would make sense then, because it is owned by Disney, but it's also adjacent to, kind of, what I mean? So
there's a Marvel thing, there's a Goofy movie thing. I know they're giving some awards out. I mean, there's also the animation greats, including like The Simpsons.
They've done that for years and years. That's like a tradition there. But also, if Marvel's there, then there's no reason Star Wars couldn't be.
Yeah, there's a Marvel animation sneak peek, and also Marvel Comics celebrating 50 years of Wolverine. So no actual movies, but
Disney Princess the concert for Warren.
That's
boy,
true.
Oh boy, I love me a Disney princess.
I love them all. I love all the Disney
Where is Jodie?
princesses.
Jodie's technically a Disney princess.
Jodie Foster?
Whittaker.
Yes. Jodie Foster
Jodie Foster is also...
Jodie Foster was in Disney
She has to have
movies.
been in a Disney thing. So
She was.
Theoretically,
She
it was.
absolutely was.
As a kid, sure.
She appeared. We were looking through Disney Plus the other night, and there was a movie from 1977 starring Jodie Foster. And I thought, this is a year after she played a teenage sex worker in Taxi Driver.
I was trying to remember what studio. Was it Warner Brothers that made Taxi Driver?
I don't know. It wasn't Disney, though. I'll tell you that
Well,
much
if it's
right
Fox
now.
or Disney, then it's a Disney. Then she's a... Oh, God, this is terrible. I'm not gonna
Don't go down there. She's a Touchstone Pictures princess, okay?
There you
Let's
go.
just put it that
Good old
way.
Touchstone or Hollywood Pictures.
That was still owned by Disney.
Yeah,
So.
that's what I mean.
So
no Doctor Who content at D23. You can all stay home unless you want to go to the or maybe you want to see National Geographic's A Real Bug's Life live.
To be fair to National Geographic, they got some good documentaries on Disney Plus.
I do great stuff. Yeah, there's a good one on the
that's the one I was
Jonestown
thinking of.
Massacre that I watched.
It is a very good
month.
documentary, though.
It's very good. Yeah, it's really happy.
Miss Piggy Muppets at 70
Hell yeah.
thing. And then
70
up your
years of
alley,
the
Steve.
Muppets? Are you? Come on.
Well,
That's
because
what it
in the
says.
late 50s, I think, or
that's
early
right.
60s, he had it on like local TV. So they're
That's
really
true.
stretching this, but
It
but
is.
those were the first Muppets.
That's true.
And then
yes.
just up your alley, Stephen, Abbott Elementary session. So,
right up my alley.
because I know how much you like that show.
A lot of people
Or
like that
anything
show.
new.
A lot of people
do.
like that show.
I've never watched it. It could be good for
enjoy
all
it.
I know.
Yeah.
Never seen it, so it might be good. I'll never get around to watching it because I'm lazy and don't watch
I have-
anything.
I have
I've seen
one-
2 episodes of Fallout. I like Fallout. I play
Right.
the game all the time. I have yet to. I'm bad at follow through with this stuff.
Fallout was fun. Yeah, we went through.
I'm sure it
all 8 of
is,
those.
but this is a personal failing of mine.
I have
habit.
one specific problem with Abbott Elementary that I'll air right now, and I don't need to mention it again, is that it's a mockumentary, which American sitcoms are, because they have.
I know, you hate that.
American sitcoms haven't got around the fact that they can't have a laugh track anymore, and so what they've replaced the laugh track with is the joke look to camera. They always did it in The Office, and because that was a mockumentary.
And 11 years of Modern Family.
Modern Family. You know, this is what they do. And so the mockumentary has become the replacement for the laugh track. And so what I don't like about it, and this is fine otherwise, I don't care, but is that it often, like, there's like cameras where there shouldn't be cameras in there. Like there's been scenes where like somebody is locked in the closet, and then they open what are you doing here locked in the closet? And then they cut to a camera that's inside the closet. So why was that camera, this documentary camera guy, stuck in this closet with this person? That's what I don't like. It's the Doyleist aspect of it that I just don't like. So there's
two
my
things
there's
about
my
that.
opinion of Abbott Elementary. Sorry, everyone who likes
things.
it. All right.
First, What We Do in the Shadows does that too, but they do a better job of it. They involve the cameraman. They put them in peril. It's funny. It actually makes sense more or less within the context of the show.
All right.
But also, I'm not even disagreeing with you because I think it can be and is abused a lot. Now, my other question is, did the original Office and The Thick of It spring to mind? Were they just documentary style where it's a lot of shaky camera where you basically get the same effect anyway, or did they talk to camera?
Office is specifically
Office
a
they talk to
documentary,
camera.
but they do
The
it.
original one is. Okay.
The original version, but they also do it at a. There are pivotal moments in that show where they know that they're a TV show. I'm thinking of when the people who know what I'm talking about, when Tim talks with Don and he unplugs his microphone to have a talk. It's like it's a super powerful moment, and it happens directly within the documentary, and that's great. Think of it as just fly on the wall. That's all. It's how it's shot.
Yeah.
It's not a documentary at all or a mockumentary. It's all just sort of fly on
Peep
the
Show
wall.
was a variation of the same thing.
Kind
But
of, yeah.
The thing is, this is a trope from the whatever that is, mid 2000s that just ain't died yet. It's gonna eventually something else come along.
I hope so. I mean, let's face it. It's been done with Spinal Tap, and it's never been bettered than Spinal Tap.
Okay, sure. But
Even
I mean,
Spinal Tap is making another Spinal Tap, and I'm thinking they can't top Spinal Tap.
I mean, of all that stuff, Spinal Tap, yes, definitely the best of the lot. But I don't know.
Well,
I'm
Wacky Comedy
a
Blair Witch
best in show fan.
yeah. What's that, Chris?
I'm a best in show fan. Or
I
not
know.
best in show.
Yeah, I know. They're good, but-
Mighty Wind. Sorry.
Yeah, Mighty Wind. That's a good one.
Mighty Wind's
Basically-
pretty funny. I
Basically, Spinal Tap but for folk music, and with less profanity, which
Yep. And then there was that 1992, 91, 92 New Year's special on NBC starring Spinal Tap that had the Folksman opening.
Oh, that's right. That's
For
right.
them.
Yeah, they're shooting a Last Waltz style finale to This Is Spinal Tap. They shot that last month or two ago in New Orleans. So that is the next thing for Spinal
I hope
Tap.
there's a lot of quote unquote behind the scenes stuff
Oh,
they
I
throw
hope
in there
so.
because that's the best part about the Last Waltz is all the
Yeah.
behind the scenes stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, Chris. But the other thing I was thinking about this is you can do the talk to camera thing and have it be more effective if you hold back on it. Because Made in Canada, which if you have CBC Gem, I highly recommend watching. It's
It's
from the
Canadian
90s and 2000s.
content.
It's
Yep.
very funny.
Striking that.
But what they do is they
box.
always throw in a thing where somebody looks directly at camera and uses one of two phrases. But that's the only time they do it, and it's super effective because of that.
Yeah. Doctor Who does it too. At the end of episodes, sometimes just have
The Christmas episode in the 60s.
just have
for instance.
ladies wearing white coats and just turning to camera and says, "Yeah, the Doctor's
Hell, you
story
got-
ends. It is terrible." Yeah.
Speaking of season 15, you got Tom Baker turning the camera in Invasion of Time.
Exactly.
I
So
don't even
many
think the sonic
times.
screwdriver can get me out of this one.
So many
Yeah.
times Tom Baker turns right to camera. And the season 15 box set, About which more later on this very podcast, people, believe it or not.
Tom, love, could we have another shot? No, you cannot.
We haven't done one of these in a long time. Fictitious awards at the TV Critics Association Awards recently, held in Hollywood, probably. Doctor Who won an award for outstanding achievement in the field of excellence. No, it won outstanding achievement in family programming. Doctor Who, family programming. How about that?
Julie Gardner was there to accept the award.
She was indeed. I mean, Shogun won drama and individual achievement. I don't know what that means. Probably actor or something like that. Bluey won outstanding achievement in children's programming, just to give you an idea of what other awards are being handed out here. Well done, Doctor Who. Family programming.
The American version of The Traitors won a reality programming thing
with Alan Cumming.
Just to throw more Canadian content into this,
Mm-hmm.
I can't hear people say The Traitors and not think of 90s television show Traitors from CBC.
I don't know that one, Warren. You're on your own there, I'm afraid.
It's about a bunch of stock traders.
Traders, Treader.
Yeah,
Gotcha. Was one of the Dale sisters in that? Was Jennifer Dale in that, or was Cynthia Dale in that?
So, or maybe Sonia. What's her name? But
I know who you mean. I can't think of her name though. But sorry, everyone who does not.
It wasn't
know.
A hit. It was just on CBC, so you were watching it whether you liked it or not.
It was on CBC in the 90s. Of course, it wasn't a hit. Are you kidding?
No,
me?
well, yes, but it was also omnipresent because it was on CBC in the 90s.
True.
Only Street Legal was allowed to be a hit from CBC.
That's true.
Was that even a hit, or was it just omnipresent?
It was omnipresent. It was there.
It's Canada. It was a hit, and omnipresent.
It was Canadian.
Why not
LA
both,
law.
as the gift says?
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so congratulations to Doctor Who winning a outstanding achievement. Family programming. Let's face it. Sometimes we look at sort of Doctor Who going, oh, maybe this isn't as hard hitting as we thought. But hey, it's a hit with families. And
hey, man-on-man kissing and
family. What's wrong with that?
CGI dogs dying in time vortex.
That's true.
Vortices.
Kids love that.
And
Snow.
it's lots of snow. Child abandonment.
Child abandonment, always good. Always good for family programming.
It's
kids got to learn about it sometime.
It's a surefire win.
Yep.
No, kids don't have to learn about sometime. I know you're not serious, but good God, man.
Am I though? Susan Twist. Anyway, are you done there? I'm going to move on. Susan Twist is appearing at Gallifrey One. She's coming to Gallifrey One. Look at that. The person who's been in the most episodes of Doctor Who as different characters, by design, it must be said. I think she probably shattered Michael Sheard's previous record for that, but she's going to be at Gallifrey One, care of Showmasters, the whole weekend.
That's cool.
In February, so that's pretty cool. She's actually going to be appearing as a different person each hour of the convention.
It's like a cosplayer with too many costumes.
It's just
got to burn them all.
Yeah, we'll just keep walking through. It's like, wait a second. I just went to the Starbucks line. I think Susan Twist was there running it. I don't.
And all the cosplayers get annoyed.
As the K1 robot somehow.
Yeah, just like, how did that happen?
Could you please stop upstaging us, Mrs. Twist?
Yeah. It's always
That's not my real name. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
When it was announced on Facebook, Rob Shearman wrote some very, very, very praiseworthy or very effusive and praise stuff about her being a wonderful person. So
I think
that's good.
I'm sure she'll be fantastic.
Yeah, she sounded lovely in the Doctor Who Unleashed and all that stuff. So yeah, she's gonna have a great time at Gallifrey One. Every time there's a new person, like a person from Doctor Who new to Gallifrey One, like experienced their first ever one, thinking, oh, people are gonna love you. You are just get ready for it. You're gonna
June Hudson. That was when that happened. Well, it's not the only time, but I remember her being welcomed with open arms and being surprised by it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Christopher Eccleston. I bet you did Big Finish because he saw the reaction that he got there and I thought, well, this is amazing.
Well, I thought he did it because of you.
He did 100% do it. Because of my interview with Christopher Eccleston. Those of you who don't know, I interviewed Christopher Eccleston on stage for his first major interview.
It's all news to me.
Doctor Who on stage at Gallifrey One 2020, and then a worldwide pandemic happened to just say we're
also
done.
your fault. Yep.
That was my fault too. I was patient zero for that, but so sorry about that. Speaking of Susan Twist, and there's always a twist at the end. So the song at the end of The Devil's Chord, which the three of us universally love.
Oh, so much.
And
I played hourly, and the dance moves. Just look at my TikTok.
right.
It's part of my embrace of masochism. The new cruelty, actually.
Well, there was a scene leading up to it that said, wow, there's a whole bunch of music energy in the world, says Doctor Who, is played by Ncuti Gatwa. And it says for the next 10 minutes or so, I think we might just burst randomly into song. And then they would cut randomly to song. But Russell T. Davies says, well, let's cut that out. Let's just go right to the song instead.
Why explain why you burst into song? Just burst into song.
See, I could have, two things. A, I wish the song would have been better.
Yeah, that's kind of key.
That's key, which kind of just invalidates any other argument as well. But I would have appreciated that scene because that's kind of the headcanon that I wrote in my hand, thinking, okay, there's like the crosswalk is like a piano board now because music has sort of like exploded and stuff. But like I would have preferred it. I would have liked that scene, and if that ever comes out on the box set or something in 2.5 years' time, whenever Disney decides to put it out, I think I want to have that deleted scene on there, and then I will reinsert it manually into my copy of this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But you'll never watch the episode. No, you'll watch it the once.
I'll watch it.
You'll watch it the once.
Yeah, I watched it enough. Yeah. It's fine. Anyway, that snippet of info came from SFX magazine there, where they had the first of a 2-part interview with Russell T. Davies about all things Doctor Who. So there's some interesting little tidbits in there. Just so you know, I'm looking forward to part 2. Probably next month. SFX comes out monthly, right? They're a monthly magazine, or is it? I
believe so. Or
is it weekly? I don't even remember anymore. But anyway, look forward to part 2. You can buy it in shops. We're not gonna pirate their material here. Mm-hmm. Unlike some sites, I'm just assuming some sites are probably just like published everything that's in there willy-nilly. Anyway, season 25 we talked about, and we guessed that we wondered what the BFI screening would be when it comes out, when they have the little event for it. And then, Chris, you wondered how long it would take for it to sell out.
Well, we assumed it'd be Remembrance that they would show.
Yeah,
and it's not.
It's not.
And it's not.
It's Happenings Patrol. So that's one thing we got wrong, but we were right in the fact that it sold out within like minutes.
Yeah, but it always does.
Yeah, I assume it's the special edition. I think probably that they want to show off the special editions, and I bet you that one is the one that stands out. You know? Yeah,
as we saw in the trailer, there's all the like extra post stuff like the neon signs and it's the broader, grander looking, like the making the sets look bigger and better.
Yeah.
And all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, showing that off makes I didn't think about that, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, this story has been re-edited using additional footage and brand new special effects to create a feature-length special edition with a new 5.1 soundtrack. Yep. So there you go. With
Chris Clough and Sheila Hancock there, along with McCoy and Aldred. So
are they going to be there, or have they just mentioned that they're in the episode in question? Because actors, Q&A with actors, McCoy, Aldred, and script editor Andrew Cartmel leads me to believe it's just those 3 there.
Okay,
so,
never mind.
So I'm sorry about
Never mind, it's just attributions. Gotcha.
Sorry.
My
so
bad.
there you go. Happening same weekend as Hooverville. So sorry to everyone going to Hooverville who wanted to see this. But you know what? I bet you all the people who went to Hooverville probably went to like every single one of these BFI things and prevented other people from getting tickets. So thank you for going to Hooverville. So perhaps people who wanted to go to their first ever BFI screening are now going to this one.
Also, from what I gather, Hooverville is a great little event on its own.
Super. Absolutely super. Stephen Hatcher does great stuff there for the Derby people. We experienced their hospitality firsthand, Warren, way back in 2015. It was great. The late, great Michael Pickwood. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And his lovely wife. She was very lovely.
Oh, what a lovely couple they were. What a night. What a night. Sitting there at 11 p.m. with one of the greatest Doctor Who set designers in history, just having a Chinese meal, a succulent Chinese meal with Michael Pickwood.
Is that a reference to that meme of that Australian guy? Or?
Yes, it is. Absolutely, it is. Yeah. Anyway, so just a few things left, kids. Then we can get on with our awesome Richard Bignell interview. This is coming a ways late here, so there'll probably be an official release, but we're jumping the gun a little bit because it's out there. Doctor Who magazine special number 67 is called "The Essential Guide to Missing Doctor Who." It comes out October 30th to coincide with the imminent return of Marco Polo episodes 4, 5, and 6.
You heard it here first and last.
That's the rumor I'm starting here, so I'm looking forward to that. A lot of people listened to last week's episode. Tim Burrows talking about missing episodes. We know you people and us love the missing episodes stuff.
Good interview, by the way. Tim Burrows has got a great radio voice.
He does indeed. That's why he does a podcast about missing episodes. You know, talks about stuff like that. So yeah. Also coming out later, how much later is this, Chris? Our good friend Simon Guerrier has a book coming out.
October 3rd, so a little earlier.
3rd, the Time Traveling Almanac. I feel like we have talked about this in the past, but it was officially announced on the BBC channels, and then Simon on his own blog, links in the show notes, radiofreeskaro.com. Has a little blurb about it, basically being an almanac, like a year in the life of the Doctor's life from his or their perspective, and how that's going to look. So I'm intrigued by that because I like Simon's writing. So that'll be fun. So that's coming out October 3rd. And then some Big Finish stuff, the other Big Finish stuff, just because the Jodie stuff was so huge, we led the show with it. But the War Doctor and the Fugitive Doctor, Joe Martin, alongside Jonathan Carley as the War Doctor in the Coda. Remember they teased the Once and Future thing over the course of the 60th anniversary, and they said there's going to be one more Coda to it next year, and we all reason, what the hell's with the Coda? Here we go. This is it. This is the one. So that is coming out in November. Once and Future Coda, the final act.
For the 61st anniversary.
Yes. Yeah, actually. Precisely for the 60th anniversary.
Well, around there anyway.
Anniversary, yep. And also, this is coming out probably December 28th, because December 28th is the 50th anniversary of the original broadcast of Robot Part 1. Robot, and so the season 12 crew are reunited in the Curse of Time full cast audio adventure. So it's celebrating half
really
a century.
Impressive. They got Ian Marter and Nick Courtney and Liz Sladen for it.
Stunning, isn't it? But you know what?
Well, they got a hold of the time travel technology that Steven wanted to use for missing episodes, but now it's been burned out. You can't use it anymore. Sorry about that.
Well, we got Tom Baker in there though. Tom Baker, actual proper Tom Baker's in that. So that's coming out, in December, probably December 28th. So there you go. And also, I want to give a shout out to a big giant interview with Peter Davison by our good friend Graham Kibble-White on the TV Choice website, talking about 25 years of Big Finish and also just how Peter Davison continues to be just so employable. Basically, he shows up on time and he knows his lines, and that is
he always was.
Yeah. He's so dependable and great as an actor.
He's currently doing "Kiss Me, Kate," I think, and
I saw him
nothing but praise for that.
Yeah, I saw. Was you sharing like this? He had like an army outfit on stage or something like that. I remember seeing things.
And then back in the day when shortly after I first moved to England to London, I went and saw Spamalot, and he was playing King Arthur.
He was in Warren. You'll remember this. What was it now? There's a play.
Most Peculiar Practice, or
no? It was a play. What was it now? It was a play. He was in a play, another play on the Strand. There, I was like, we kept seeing ads for it. Him and a famous actress.
Was it a pantomime thing or something?
No, it wasn't pantomime. It was actual. He's a legitimate actor, proper actor,
legitimate theater.
Yeah,
I don't remember what it was.
I can't remember it, but it was notable, and I've seen. It wasn't Kinky Boots or something like that. It was something else.
Even right after he left Doctor Who, like I remember he went right into something else. Like he's never not worked.
During Doctor Who, remember they had to basically split up his first 2 seasons of Doctor Who because of other. Basically, they pulled a Shutigatwa, and then he says, "Okay, we'll start early, and then we got to take a 3-month break so Peter Davis can go off and do his other show, and then we can get him back." And
his son-in-law is much the same. So.
Yeah, absolutely. You know. Mm-hmm. Davison is so. I watched a lot of season 20 over the past week. Just had it on in the background with production notes on while I edited podcast because, of course, the box set finally came out this a week or so ago. And every time I watch Davison, I'm going, he's so underrated. He's so great. You know?
Oh yeah, he's totally underrated. I always loved the Fifth Doctor.
I do too. I just adore that guy. He's just great. So. Anyway, read the interview. It's a really good interview with Graham Kibble-White. Links in the show notes there. Speaking of great interviews, I'm just saying that because the guest is the person who's great here to listen to. It's noted Doctor Who historian Richard Bignell about the creation of the Doctor Who collection Blu-ray sets. Here's that chat now. The Doctor Who collection Blu-ray releases are, of course, stuffed with remastered episodes, feature-length documentaries, and lots of archive material. But pop each disc into an external Blu-ray drive, and you will find a wealth of PDF material, like copies of original camera scripts, marketing material, and so much more. And the person who compiles these pages, which number literally in the thousands for each release, is noted Doctor Who historian Richard Bignell, who joins me today. Hello, Richard.
Hello, Stephen. How are you?
I am great. It's great to talk to you. It's great to finally have on the podcast because I feel like while we're focusing on your PDF work, I'm kind of underselling your contributions to the DVD and Blu-ray range over the years. How far back do you go with these things?
It was fairly on in the DVD range that I started being involved. There used to be, many, many years ago, a message board that the BBC used to run, a Doctor Who message board. And that used to be on 2 or 3 nights a week. It was a moderated message board.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to speaking to some of the guys who were working on the DVD range back then. And they had, I think it was around the time that the Dalek invasion of Earth and the Aztecs were being prepared. And I was sort of throwing out a few ideas to them online because I'd been in touch with a few people. And it sort of really snowballed from then. So, yeah, it goes back probably longer than I care to remember.
So, I mean, the PDF stuff that was on the DVD releases was, it was pretty great too. But I feel like you've leveled up with the Blu-ray releases. PDFs can't be that big though. I imagine that the increased size of space on a Blu-ray disc increased your ability to put stuff on, or am I wrong about that?
Yes, it did. I mean, the PDFs that we put onto the DVDs, the original DVD range, were fairly small. The Radio Times material, or the basic Radio Times material, was pretty much always on there. That was looked after by someone else, Steve Cowley, I think,
mm-hmm.
at the time. And then there were a few other little bits and pieces that went on, the occasional design drawing, things like that. Nothing too huge, nothing too plentiful. I made a few suggestions along the way about putting some of the ephemeral material on, so promotional stuff, things like that. So I did a few of those.
Mm-hmm.
And about partway through the range, I did suggest the idea of doing something with putting stuff on from the production files, which was not only because I thought it was of interest, but it was also a personal thing as well, because if I was working on a BBC project, I could get into the BBC written archives for nothing, whereas I had to pay as a private researcher to go in there. But for all sorts of reasons, we didn't do it back then. It probably wouldn't have worked, to be honest, because the releases we were doing were chopping and changing a bit as we went along. So it would have been probably harder to do back then. But when we came to do the Blu-rays were an idea that were kicking around for a number of years after the DVD range had finished. And I honestly can't remember now, thinking back, whether it was myself that suggested doing the PDF material or whether that came from Russell Minton. But it was something that I sort of quite readily embraced, because obviously the Blu-rays would allow us more room to put things on. When we had our initial meetings, there were lots of thoughts about how we were going to do this. Some people have said to us, well, it's a pity this can't be sort of like downloaded via a code or something,
mm-hmm.
which we did consider, and it was fairly quickly dismissed, because in order to do that, you need to have someone maintaining the servers at the BBC end. And the problem is that you do sometimes get to a point where someone decides this is no longer viable, this isn't worth the money we're putting into it, and they flick the switch and turn it off, and it's all gone.
Right.
So we thought if we did it as PDFs and actually put them onto the disc, you actually had the material. that the customer actually had the material. And even if they didn't have the means to access it at any given moment, because they didn't have a Blu-ray drive to use, it was something they could always do later on. And once we sort of got into that mindset, the number of PDFs that I started to produce gradually grew and grew and grew. And whereas we started off putting on things like scripts and just having one version of a script, we'll now look at putting on different versions if they're available. So if there are rehearsal scripts available, we'll put those on, as well as camera scripts, transmission scripts, because we've got the space to do it. We've got the ability to do it, and we can now give sort of even greater value to the customer.
So, I mean, you did a bunch for the DVD range, and then once they started coming out on Blu-ray, did you already have that material on hand already, or did this require multiple trips to the BBC Written Archive?
At the time I started going to the BBC Written Archives, the only material you could get was photocopies, and you had to pay extra for the photocopies to be done, which were then mailed out to you about a week later, because they had to be done by the research assistants there. But their photocopier at the Written Archives has always been a bit rubbish. So the quality wasn't great. So, I mean, now you can go into the Written Archives. You can still get photocopies if you want to, but you are allowed to take digital photographs, which you weren't before. But doing photographs, which is what I had to do for season 12 for the very first one, proved to be more problematic, because you've then got to do an awful lot of processing afterwards in order to try and sort them out. So we had to see whether or not it was going to be possible to scan material. And this was going to be difficult because the BBC Written Archives really doesn't allow scanners. So we had to get special dispensation from the staff of the Written Archives to allow me to go in with a scanner and to scan the material. And actually, they were quite amenable to the idea, simply because the Doctor Who files are constantly going out to researchers. They seem to be the ones that are constantly wanting to be looked at. And they've always been a bit wary about the amount of wear and tear actually going in onto the files.
Right.
So their line of thinking was, well, if we go in and scan them, then hopefully it'll cut down the traffic of people actually wanting to have a look at those. So what I will do, what I have to do now is usually I go in there twice a year. I will go in there for a 5-day stint. The centre opens at 10 o'clock in the morning. You are kicked out at 5 o'clock on the dot. So I will be there for 5 days working absolutely flat out over those 5 days to get all the scans that I need. If I've got enough time towards the end of the week, I will usually start on whatever the next set is going to be, or start doing some other files, which I know at some point we're going to be using and going to be going in there. But it's absolutely flat out. You don't stop for lunch because there isn't time. You just keep going. And after a week, all you have in your ears is this constant hum of the scanner going back and forth. And you get scanner's elbow and scanner's shoulder, because you're constantly having to press mouse keys all the time to get things going. So, yeah, but it's a bit of a labour of love, because you realise that to have access to this material, to this unique historical material, is a wonderful thing, and you want to bring that to people and let them enjoy it as well. So we just try to do as much as we possibly can in the time that we have.
Have you? I mean, you've been researching Doctor Who for a long time now, and you've been to the Written Archive a few times, of course. For these Blu-ray releases, have you ever sort of been like, "Oh, I hadn't seen this before," and you were like startled by something that perhaps had never seen the light of day until you sort of found it in some nook and cranny in the BBC archive, or elsewhere, perhaps not even outside of the Written Archive?
Because I've been going to the BBC Written Archives for probably about 25 years on and off now.
Mm-hmm.
So most of the files I tend to have looked at one time or another. Sometimes you get more surprised by what isn't there than what is. It's very, very hit and miss as to what they kept.
Mm-hmm.
There was no remit at the BBC to keep anything in terms of paperwork, apart from contractual stuff. So things like actors' contracts, writers' contracts, they were kept deliberately. But production material, there wasn't any remit to do it. So for some BBC productions, there is absolutely nothing at all. For some programs, even long-running ones like Doctor Who, there is very, very little material available. We are remarkably fortunate with what we have in terms of material for Doctor Who. But you'll go in there and you'll call up the files that you want to see, and sometimes they can be absolutely massive, a couple of inches thick, full of paperwork. Other times you end up getting a really thin little folder because they just didn't decide to keep any. But I think sort of the most extraordinary thing that I can remember is, in terms of what's not there, was getting the Time Flight files out and finding there was absolutely nothing in there about Concorde at all.
Really?
This massive prop that they were going to be using, you'd expect there to be lots of things about the negotiations of it being used and the circumstances. And I think, if I remember rightly, one of the Concords broke down, so they had to swap it out so that the one they were going to use could go into active service. And there's absolutely nothing in there about the Concords at all. I think it's mentioned once on a document, and that's about it. I sort of expected for that season as well, looking in the Black Orchid files, to see something about the accident that Gareth Milne had when he was playing George Cranley and did the stunt falling from the roof of the house, and he missed the boxes and ended up smacking himself on the patio. But again, absolutely no mention of it at all. But then again, over the years, there have been things which have been very exciting to find, not in connection with the Blu-rays, but you come across things which you really didn't expect to find. So it was lovely to be able to find many years ago Terry Nation's script and all the paperwork on the BBC side and to and from Terry Nation with regards to his plans to do a Dalek spin-off in the late 60s. All that material was still there. It was lovely to be able to find a lot of material about the Stanmark Watermill proposal in order to do an independent Doctor Who radio series that was going to be done with Peter Cushing in the late 60s. The script for that was written by Malcolm Holt was still in the file. Sometimes you do come across these sort of really interesting, remarkable things that you don't expect to be there. One of the big problems, in fact, I was discussing this with my research assistant there, Louise, last time. One of the big problems with the Written Archive Centre is that they don't have any publicly searchable database for researchers such as myself to access. You've got to do it through their staff. And as I said to them, the trouble is half the time you don't know what you're looking for until you see it.
Right.
In the past, for instance, they've got sort of hard copies of very, very old hard copy printout, dot matrix printouts of some of their listings, and sometimes I go through those in an odd 5 minutes when I'm trying to regain my sanity from the scanning, and all of a sudden it'll come up with a heading about radiophonic workshop, say, and you suddenly think, oh, okay, what's contained about that? But you won't necessarily know that's there unless you've got a chance to actually look at the database. So it can be quite frustrating in that respect. I am sure there are other hidden little treasures in there. It's just that I and they don't know where they are. I'll give you one, for instance.
Yeah.
One of the things we've been putting on over the last few sets are what the BBC called BBC Play Synopses. In the Radio Times, going right back to the 1960s, used to get a little section in there that was titled For the Deaf. And these were publications that the BBC created for the Royal National Institute for the Deaf. And it was basically a written synopsis of television programs that were going to be coming up, so that deaf people could actually have a written synopsis of what they were going to be seeing on the screen. And these are quite interesting because they had to be prepared quite a way in advance. So sometimes what they were working from was very early rehearsal scripts. Mm-hmm. So the synopsis, say, for Fury from the Deep, is actually from all the original Colony of Devils scripts, with all the differences that they had. So the TARDIS lands up the top of a cliff. They have to abseil down. It's all to do with Jamie's bagpipes destroying the weed and so on, because they were working off the original scripts. Mm-hmm. Now, I happened to mention this to my research assistant. Jeremy Bentham is really helpful with regards to this because he has quite a few of them. So the ones we've been able to use are accessing his copies or David J. Howe's copies. But I happened to mention this to them. Did they actually have them? They'd never heard of them before. So I sent them a scan of one so they could see what I was talking about. And they came back to me a couple of months ago and said, oh, we've found a box of about 600 of these, but no one's ever looked at them before.
Wow.
So I'll be having a look at those when I go in next time, probably October-ish, September, October-ish, and seeing exactly what they've got there. So there is going to be extra material there. It's just we don't necessarily know it's there until we can actually dig it out and find it.
This is like almost a metaphor for the missing episodes hunt, really, because there's like it might be out there, but no one knows what to look for, and everyone's sort of like just searching for, you know, the hole when maybe the rest of the donut is something that can indicate stuff that's going to be there.
Absolutely.
On the season 15 set, I am a lifelong apologist of Underworld. It was one of the first snippets of the first stories I ever saw when I was a kid. I always hold it to high regard, even though it was a troubled production. But there is a whole thing about Mitch Mitchell's video effects storyboards that's on this, which is fascinating to see how these very early video effects were going to be arranged. Where did that come from? Was that also in the written archive?
Yeah, that's in the production file. In fact, that makes up the majority of what's in the Underworld production file. So the file that we have for that particular story is actually quite a thin one. Probably good 2/3 of the material that's in there are those photocopied storyboards that were created. So yeah, that was something that was in the file, but there's not a huge amount of other material for that, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this could have been a thing going on. This isn't tied into season 15, but you know, I've read James Curry Smith's book about the massacre and how frustrating it is that there aren't original versions of the scripts copied. And then David Brunt's book, which I have yet to read, but his first Doctor production diary, I think, sort of sheds a lot of light on the history of the Celestial Toymaker and the different versions of the script that sort of happens there. Are these all things that you could find in the BBC written archive as well?
Scripts, no. They do have paper copies of virtually all of the scripts, but they do vary as to what sort they are. Mm-hmm. Usually by the time you get to... They're very often camera scripts with the occasional rehearsal scripts in there. By the time you get to John Nathan Turner's time, they tend to be what's called transmission camera scripts. So someone will take the camera script, they will literally go over it in Tipex and change the wording to what was actually seen on screen. So frustratingly, I mean, you mentioned that. Frustratingly, we know that many years ago, the BBC had their own script unit, which closed down in the 1990s, I think. And the script library that they had, that wasn't at the written archives. That was elsewhere in London. But that was a repository for scripts. And we know that they did hold scripts that aren't in existence now. So they had, for instance, the scripts for the original version of what became City of Death, A Gamble with Time.
Mm-hmm.
David Fisher's original version, very different version. But when they closed the script unit down, they seem to have all disappeared. So we don't actually know what else might have been there tucked away, but they seem to have gone. So unfortunately, it's a bit difficult to tell sometimes what the BBC have kept and what they haven't. As I said, we are very lucky as far as the scripts are concerned. We do have hard copy versions of the vast majority of them. They also have microfilmed versions of other copies of the script. So sometimes the hard copy scripts might have holes in them, pages missing, which we're able to sort of get together and piece together with the different versions that they've got on microfilm. That's very much the case with Invasion of Time. Invasion of Time, probably the PDFs of the Invasion of Time scripts are probably the best you're likely to get unless someone suddenly turns up an original set somewhere, because they were the BBC's versions are very, very scrappy. Right. They're hard copy versions because they have their script unit on occasion would decide that they were going to, especially if someone asked for copies of the scripts, if they looked at the copies of the scripts they had and they thought it wasn't very clear, they would literally go over the top in biro, in ballpoint pen, and write all the words back in. So the scripts for some of the episodes of Invasion of Time, this also applies to Day of the Daleks as well, were all sort of written over the top in ballpoint pen. But we managed to get copies of those elsewhere. But for the Invasion of Time, I had to cobble together scripts from about 3 different sources for that in order to try and get a complete version of the scripts that were legible. You can see what the original ones were like because we've actually put those on there as well for the planned video version of the compilation of the Invasion of Time, which they were thinking about many years ago when they were first starting. BBC Video was first starting out, but they never produced or they never released. They did produce it, they didn't release it. And 3 of the 6 scripts, hard copy scripts they hold, have written on them in hand videogram edit. So they're ones where they have gone over the top in ballpoint pen, but they have also crossed out all the scenes and bits and pieces that they were going to edit out for the videogram edit, for the 90-minute edit. So I thought we'd put those on as well because it's an interesting curio of something that never actually hit the stores.
Yeah, and some enterprising editor at home could now make their own 90-minute official BBC edit of the Invasion of Time.
See, interestingly, everyone was of the opinion that it was never put together, as was I, until several years ago when the question cropped up again. I think it was on Gallifrey Base. And I made a comment saying, yeah, it was planned, but it was never actually done. They never actually put it into production. Only to get then an email virtually straight away from a guy called Andrew Martin, who was a Doctor Who fan who worked at the BBC archive, film and videotape archive. And he said, well, actually, they did. We have a store for BBC Worldwide here, and the masters are still on the shelf because they did make the edit. Now, of course, by that point, we'd actually finished the DVD range. We'd long done Invasion of Time, so there wasn't really anywhere to use it. But of course, when we started doing the Blu-rays, I thought, and season 15 came up, I thought, okay, maybe this is something we can dig out. So I made the inquiries about it, which ended up going back to Steve Roberts, lovely Steve Roberts, who was working in the archive, and ended up sending in the email. And Steve said, well, there isn't a vault for BBC Worldwide. There never has been. Mm-hmm. I went, oh, okay. Then he went away and asked one of his seniors, and they said, oh, yeah, there used to be, but it was all cleared out and put into storage. So we did chase it up, but we think when they put the stuff into storage several years ago, they actually thinned it all out, and it doesn't look like that edit survives. So all we have are the scripts. Now, I did consider trying to put the thing together because I was trying to. I think the Videogram edit scripts, as they're written on the top, are for episodes 2, 3, and 4, I think. And there are very sort of definite crossings out of scenes and parts of scenes. So I thought, oh, well, let's just see whether or not it will be possible to do anything with this. Mm-hmm. And I tried, and it still didn't come anywhere near to the 90 minutes that they were planning to make it, because my assumption was that they might well have left the first episode alone entirely as the scene setter.
Right.
They might well have left episodes 5 and 6 alone entirely because that's all the Sontaran part of the story. And they might have taken just episodes 2, 3, and 4, which is the Varden bit, and condensed all that down. So you ended up having half the story about the Vardens and half of it about the Sontarans, but it doesn't actually work. I don't know how they would have done it in practice, because when you try and do it according to the scripts, there are half scenes missing, mm-hmm. but the halves come sort of like halfway through music cues, and then it suddenly jumps to the end part of the scene where people are in completely different positions. So it just looks very, very disjointed. I don't quite know how they would have done it for real, but I should imagine they would have been able to tidy it up somewhat.
Mm-hmm. On the topic of Invasion of Time, there is a production document archive that numbers 540 pages in there. I'm skimming through some of it. A lot of it is like there's like handwritten notes from meetings and everything. Like, this is a remarkable compilation of pretty much everything that's ever been written about the production of Invasion of Time. Is this all from the BBC Written Archive, or in a more general question, is there stuff outside of the archive that you find and cobble together?
That is, yes. The Invasion of Time material is all from the BBC files.
Goodness.
But yes, we do use exterior sources as well. We've had some very, very generous collectors who have opened up their collections to us, have allowed us to be able to use material that they've gained over the years in their collections. I must give a shout out to Chris Hill. As you know, Chris has an amazing merchandise collection, but he is so generous with it. So Chris helps us with all the Radio Times material that we put on. All of those files are done from scratch, and we try to include a lot more than was in the original ones on the DVDs. But we've had some really fabulous help from collectors. For season 15, for instance, we've got a collector in the UK called Mark Watterson, had the rehearsal scripts for Image of the Fendal, which he got direct from Chris Boucher many years ago. Oh. The BBC just have camera scripts. So I got in contact with Mark and I said to him, is there any possibility that we could possibly include those on the season 15 release? And he happily sent them all down to me, and I scanned them, and we were able to put those on. So, it's lovely to be able to have those earlier versions. For season 15, the video effects guy at the BBC, Mitch Mitchell, had a number of studio floor plans that he had kept. So we have the one for Horror of Fang Rock,
Mm-hmm.
I think there's one in there for Underworld, another one in there which is Invisible Enemy, I think. So people are really kind. I think they've sort of got into the spirit of what we're trying to do with this, and as you said, it's this whole thing is expanding and expanding in a frankly ridiculous way. I mean, we're getting into silly figures now, so it's something to be quite proud of, I think.
It is. It is. It's we wait with bated breath for the next releases, but I mean we're over halfway there when it comes to the classic series. Is there stuff that you have found in the archive or elsewhere that would have been a great release on a Blu-ray that has already gone out? And have you sort of says, "Oh no, we missed it," or has your research been so exhaustive that you've basically every release we have here is complete, so to speak, and there's nothing new sort of from the archive to be added?
No, there are things which have cropped up. I mean, Mitch has just talking about the floor plans that Mitch has given us. He's got floor plans for stories we've already done.
Mm-hmm.
But my intention is that I am assuming that we will get to the point where we do this sort of mythical Wilderness Years release, which will include the TV movie.
Mm-hmm.
If we get to that point, then what I would intend to do is sort of do an addendum to the PDFs. So go back and include on that all the material that we may have come across since, and just sort of put everything on that so it's complete. I mean, for the earlier ones, some of the earlier ones, it was a case more of sort of going through the files and picking and choosing what I thought might be of interest to people.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when we go in, I tend to try to copy as much as I can, and stuff that maybe I might not have necessarily chosen for previous releases. But what I've sort of come to realize over the years is that sometimes when people are doing their research, it can be tiny details on single documents that they have, that there's a subject that they're interested in, that they're researching in, and all of a sudden it'll be that one little bit of information on a document that makes someone go that sort of unlocks something which I wasn't quite sure about or I didn't know. I mean, for instance, many years ago was when David Brunt was doing the production subtitles on the DVD of Invasion of the Dinosaurs. And just on one document, there was just one line which suddenly told us that it was probably the actress April Walker, who was originally cast as Sarah Jane Smith,
Mm-hmm.
that Barry Letts would never name. And I remember distinctly getting an email. I think he sent it to me, and I think he sent it to Andrew Pixley that evening, saying who it was. I'd never heard of her. But when I realised she'd been in 40 Towers, in an episode of 40 Towers, I suddenly realised who they were talking about. I then got in contact, sent an email straight off to my research assistant at the BBC Written Archives, just to say, could you have a look in this person's, what they call a contributor file? So each actor has a contributor file which will contain all the contracts for work they've done for the BBC over the years. And I said, could you actually have a look at her file for this particular date and just see whether or not there's anything in there relating to her being cast in Doctor Who? And there was about 20 documents in there, which they then copied and sent over. So it was that just one tiny mention on one document suddenly told us something that we'd wanted to know for donkey's years, but didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
So I've sort of come to appreciate more that there is more relevance, including as much as possible as we can in these PDFs, because you don't know what it is that people might find useful at some point. And if they can find some interest in some tiny detail and it unlocks something that they've been trying to find out about, then it's all worthwhile.
Absolutely. I always think back to when Peter Capaldi was announced as Doctor Who, and they interviewed him live on TV, and he said a line that always sticks with me: "We all make Doctor Who, all of us." And I get that, it's just you putting a PDF on a Blu-ray, which you think might be of casual interest to someone, is actually the thing that unlocks a whole new thread of research.
That's right, and it's the fact that we've got the ability to be able to put the information on there. If you've got the ability to be able to do it, you might as well utilize what you've got. With season 15, which happens to be our 15th Blu-ray release, we've now got a total of just shy of 59,000 pages worth of material.
Uh-huh.
Now, just to put that into some sort of context for people, people may well be aware of the Encyclopedia Britannica, because that is something that you very often used to see in libraries or in schools or in universities or colleges and so on. Now, Encyclopedia Britannica is actually, despite its name, it's now an American company. It was sold over 100 years ago to an American company. And back in 2010, they actually produced the very last hard copy version of the encyclopedia. It's all online now. But the 15th edition that they produced back in 2010 had in total 32 volumes. Now, if you've ever seen the Encyclopedia Britannica, it is a huge amount of material. And that would cost you, those 32 volumes would have cost you back then $1,400, or about just over £900 in English money. In today's money, that would equate closer to about £1,300. But the Encyclopedia Britannica, those 32 volumes contain just over 1,000 pages per volume. The 15th edition contains 32,640 pages. And we're now on, as of season 15, just shy of 59,000 pages. So it is the equivalent we put onto the Blu-ray sets of one complete set of 32 volumes of the Encyclopedia Britannica, plus another 4/5 of a set.
Right.
And we're only sort of partway through doing this. I can tell you on the next one we're going to be releasing, I've got about another 5,000 pages worth on there. So, you can see how much material this has, which sort of, some people say, all right, well, I couldn't justify getting a Blu-ray drive for looking at this. But then you are unlocking a huge amount of material. So some people did say very early on that they thought we should be producing these as books rather than just doing them as PDFs. But I think anyone, if you say to them you very nearly got 60 odd volumes of the Encyclopedia Britannica's worth of material on there, they realise how impractical that would be. But yeah, so we're just keep going. We just find as much material as we can, as much material as we can use, and we'll put it out there for people, because those who are accessing it really seem to enjoy it. Those who haven't done yet, as and when they choose to get a Blu-ray drive, if they choose to do so, it's all there for them and they can make the very most of it.
It's worth it. I have 2 Blu-ray drives, and because of, let's face it, because of the PDFs on these wonderful releases that you and the team put together. I'm looking forward to season 15 coming out this week here in North America. I know it's been out in North America and the UK for a while. I look forward to whatever the next release is, even though I know no one's going to tell me. But I look forward to that at all releases. And thank you so much, Richard Bignell, for talking to me about with it today.
Absolute pleasure, Stephen.
Thank you, Richard. I've wanted to have Richard Bignell on this show for a long, long time. So I'm glad we finally found the reason to do it, basically, to talk about this.
Oh, we could have come up with an arbitrary one if we needed to.
That's true. That's true. Also, nothing at the end of the lane is like the Stanley Kubrick filmography of Doctor Who magazines, and there's like been 5 or 6.
So far as
there's so few
so far
of them.
as there's one release every 8 years or something.
But there's so much in them, and they are perfect, and they're crammed with amazing stuff.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of them are on PDFs. They used to just be on bound books. I'm pretty sure across the actual book version and the PDF version, I think I have them all. They are amazing stuff. Nothing at the end of the lane. Do seek those out. They're really good. Richard Bignell knows the stuff, so.
Yeah.
We're glad to have him and people like him working on the Doctor Who collections, including season 15, which is out now, unless you ordered it from BBC Shop, in which case you will wait 3 weeks, and then you will you'll get
right
2
over
of
there,
them
crying in the corner.
inexplicably. Yep, you'll get 2 of them, guaranteed.
Hey, if I get 2 of them again for having to wait a few weeks, I'm happy waiting a few weeks.
Yeah, it's perfectly fine. All right, we have talked a lot this week. Thank you again for listening, everyone. And we'll be back next week. I'll be back in my proper place, hopefully, and we'll carry on from there as we gear up for San Diego Comic-Con in a couple weeks' time. Until next time, I am Stephen in Madison.
Warren in Vancouver.
And Chris in Edmonton.
So long for now.